The January 2022 compromise of a third-party customer support engineer, a DevOps Postmortem. Imagine it's the early hours of January 21, 2022. You're staring at a dashboard and realize that someone isn't just knocking on your front door, they've already walked through it with a master key. For Okta, the stakes weren't just internal, they were foundational. A threat actor from the L. Alright, let's set the stage. To understand why this incident caused such a massive headache, you have to understand what Okta actually does. Think of them as the gatekeepers. They provide identity management for some of the biggest enterprises in the world. When someone logs into an enterprise app, Okta is often the one checking their keys and letting them through the door. Because everything seemed standard until the rot started in a corner of the supply chain. For weeks, operations at Sitel, a third-party vendor for Okta, moved along just fine, but beneath the surface, a threat actor from the Lapsus group was lurking in the shadows of their network. The vulnerability wasn't some complex architectural failure. It was a simple lack of multi-factor authentication on a single support engineer. It started with a quiet, almost mundane anomaly in the logs that would eventually spiral into a full-blown nightmare. On January 20, 2022, at 23:18 UTC, the Okta security team caught their first whiff of trouble. An alert flagged a new password being added to a Sitel employee's account from an unfamiliar location. The user didn't even engage. The danger didn't start with a massive breach of the front door. It began in the shadows of a third-party partnership. On January 20, 2022, at 23:18 UTC, an alert hit for a Sitel employee whose account suddenly had a new password added from an unknown location. The attacker ignored the MFA challenge and moved in. By early morning on January 21, they were. The core of this mess wasn't a sophisticated zero-day exploit. It was a textbook failure in supply chain security and identity management. The breach originated from the compromise of a single workstation belonging to a third-party customer support engineer at Sitel. This specific account was left wide open, lacking multi-factor authentication, a massive oversight when dealing with high-privilege access. Because that gate was unlocked, the Lapsus dollars. When we talk about the blast radius of this breach, it's a classic case of how one weak link can ripple through an entire ecosystem. The threat actor didn't just walk into Okta. They sat inside a third-party support engineer's workstation at Sitel for 5 days between January 16 and 21, 2022. During that window, they seized control of a single. The clock started ticking on January 20, 2022, at 23:18 UTC, when a red flag popped up. A new password factor was added to a Sitel employee's account from an unrecognized location. The user ignored the MFA challenge, but the security team didn't just sit on it. They escalated the alert within 30 minutes. By yonder 28 UTC on January 21. So, how did they plug the leak? It wasn't just a quick patch. It was a total overhaul of their third-party trust model. Okta made the call to sever ties with Sitel entirely, recognizing that the vendor's lack of multi-factor authentication for support staff was a massive liability. To tighten the screws, they moved toward a zero-trust architecture and mandated that all third-party partners must authenticate through Okta's. Look, the takeaway here isn't just security is hard, it's about where your perimeter actually ends. When a third-party vendor like Sitel has an employee whose account lacks multi-factor authentication, they aren't just a partner, they are a backdoor into your house. The fact that the threat actor held control of that workstation for 25 consecutive minutes and touched 2 active customer tenants proves how quickly a single weak link can. That's how Okta turned a very bad day into a lesson. If this saved you an outage, subscribe for the next postmortem.